Good morning, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on tech tips and security precautions for restarting your business from home. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'm going to be your host today, and our presenter is Bud Freund. More on Bud in just a minute, but first some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a national organization with over 11,000 volunteers across the country, and we are part of the Small Business Administration of the federal government. SCORE Fairfield County locally, we have 130 plus volunteers with expertise in a wide range of industries and also process and subject matter expertise. We offer three primary value-added services to small business owners. First of all, we offer free one-on-one counseling, and in today's times, that's done by video, telephone, or email, and you can access that by going to our website and requesting a mentor. There's a link there on the website, or you can use the link that you see on the screen for one-on-one mentoring. Secondly, we offer educational workshops and webinars like the one we're offering today, and we offer about 150 of those during the year. And lastly, we have extensive resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts that are at your disposal. Our next live webinar will be next Tuesday, June the 2nd at noon. And the topic is what you absolutely positively have to be doing on LinkedIn right now, with Mark Halpert presenting. And you can find more specifics and details on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And when you go to our website, you'll also notice that we have a number of on-demand webinars that you can access on a wide range of topics that might be helpful to you. We will set aside time for Q&A today, and Budley will take questions at the end of his presentation. And if you would like to ask a question, you can hover your mouse on the lower part of the screen and you'll see a chat box come up there. If you click on that chat box, you can submit your questions at any time during today's presentation. Our webinar will end sharply at 9 o'clock to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available on our website within the next 48 hours. And again, the website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Bud Freund. Bud Freund has been self-employed for 40 years, and after graduating from Ithaca College, his national and international assignments were from corporate, magazine, and public relations clients. He has been providing IT solutions to homes and small businesses for 20 years. He currently teaches technology life skills at King and manages the Bicultural Hebrew Academy Network. As a certified SCORE mentor, he regularly presents technology webinars and workshops throughout Fairfield County. I'll now turn it over to Bud. Bud, all yours.
Thank you very much, Bob, and thank you all for joining us. One of the other things we'd like you to add into the chat is whether you find this time period to be a good one for our webinars, or if it's really torturous to get out of bed and do these things first thing in the morning. So I'm going to try to go through a list of things, and if you have any questions along the way, please understand that we're here to answer your questions. So if information is confusing, please ask, we'll clarify it for you. We are in a really unusual time, and unfortunately, unusual times may require some unusual actions as well. Anyway, let's move on, because right now is a time where we all need to be enormously cautious in the information that we're getting, the information that we're clicking on, and these screenshots were from one day of a Washington Post cybersecurity newsletter that I get. It's a very unsettling picture. Add on top of it the fact that we're seeing this enormous spike in people trying to fool you. And I will spend a lot of time deeper in this prezo trying to explain ways to be smarter than the people who are trying to outsmart you. The goal, and you'll hear me say this repeatedly as well over the next hour, is to keep stuff safe that you're using to keep your business running. These are the items that we're going to be covering today, and you'll see a lot of it. I will also be repeating this freeze frame notion, because once this webinar is online, you may find that the quantity of info is really good to do as a playback so that you can hit pause, take a note, and then continue on. I've used it numerous times for webinars myself. It's a great way to absorb a huge amount of information. So the first piece of information that I think is really important to understand is this notion of there's no right or wrong to the things that I'm going to be talking about. For all of us, it's going to be a matter of what works, what doesn't work, and what's the effect going to be on your bank account, and can you afford some of these things? Now, one of the other items that's important to the infrastructure of your home business is a quick example of my own. My basement office is directly under my kitchen. And I am regularly amazed at the fact that I think Babar the Elephant King and his entire entourage have come to visit me on pogo sticks at various times of the day, which means that for me, an earlier hour before my kids are up is a better time to do a brizo than at noontime when the noise above me is just unsettling. Your office may be the same. And when we start to think about infrastructure, rather than thinking about these devices we have by their specific names, I'd like you to think of them as the everything things, because that is what they have become to us. They are communication, both or written, verbal, and visual. They're banking, billing, and investing. They're research, recreation, and right now it's education. And I don't think any of us ever thought that these mobile devices and our laptops and computers were going to be as important to the infrastructure of our homes as our stoves or refrigerators. So the safeguarding of these items is extremely important. Now that little box down in red with all the little black and white dots is called a QR code. And I don't know any human that can read that. My point being that you don't know whether that QR code is going to take you to a good website or not, whether it's going to provide information to you of value or not. And because of that, proceeding cautiously with them is very important to the safeguarding of your infrastructure. Similarly, bit.lys, and I will be using them a lot through this presentation, work the same way. You really don't know where a bit.ly will take you. So that website will deconstruct a bit.ly and tell you where the click is going to take you before you click and regret. So just a piece of information that will be helpful in keeping things healthy. Now, I have been doing this PSA for a number of years, and it's important to understand that if you can do these 4 things for your business, whether your computer stopped working today, if you've got backup, or I prefer to say business continuity to your infrastructure and how you work, you will find that you can keep your business going. And understand that if you have this strategy in place, you will be a leg up on a multinational corporation that had absolutely no idea of what to do when North Korea shut them down over that cockamamie movie that they produced a couple of years ago. So let's talk about what's going on in terms of why that internet isn't working so well for you every now and then. And if I was more dexterous, I would be using my pinky instead of my index finger. But many of us have a massive number of devices in our house, and then we've got this connection out to the internet, and from the internet, it's got to go somewhere else. And when you've got everybody in your neighborhood grabbing that bandwidth at the same time, it could slow things down. So let me explain for those of us in the lower Fairfield County area, our providers are either Frontier or Optimum. I use Optimum, and base level Optimum service is 100 megabits per second. To double the speed of your internet connection costs an additional $10 a month, which we did, and I have not heard any complaints from the elephants pounding on my kitchen floor upstairs since I did it. If that is not fast enough for you, to increase your speed to 300 megabits will cost $20 a month and will also require a different modem in your house. In other words, for the 100 and 200 megabits, whatever Optimum already has in your house will be good enough. You need faster, somebody from Optimum is going to need to come to your home and replace your modem, and as you can see, those are the costs. Underneath, you'll see bit.lys for articles in both the Washington Post and the New York Times that give explanations in far greater detail. Now, we all are using routers to get ourselves from our homes out to the internet. So the router connects to the modem connects to the internet. Routers come in both wired and wireless versions. And if you are on a wired router, I would suggest to you that your connection will be safer, faster, and more stable. It will be safer because unless somebody plugs in, they can't get on your network. Even if you have a Wi-Fi password, there are people who go around trying to crack these things for inexplicable reasons, but that's what they do for fun. If you are going to be on a wireless and there are areas of your home that have less strength than others, I recommend what are called mesh networks. And the easiest way to think of a mesh network is that it's literally overlapping bubbles. Your first device is going to plug into your modem and it will send out a signal. The trick is to get the second device right at the edge of that bubble so it picks up the signal, creates a new bubble, and passes it on to a third device. In my home, I am using a system called MyMesh, which I got from Amazon. The app is on my phone, and it turns out that when somebody was doing something in the house somewhere, one of our devices was turned off, and the app lets me know. Also, understand there are 32 devices in my house that are connected to the internet right now, which we lose track of how much stuff is connecting. Also, if you've got family members where you need to do some parental management, and we'll discuss this in greater detail further in, better routers have abilities to time out machines. The computer in the family room shuts down at 10 p.m., it's not negotiable. Or if there's a problem during the day, you can close down a machine. Better routers have better underhood controls. Now, when it comes to the hardware of both routers and computers, clearly newer is better. They've plugged up holes, newer machines run faster, there are newer software protocols that have been put into place, they make things safer, and with the exception of Firefox, and I'll go into a little more detail later, newer hardware and software is far more compatible than older stuff. For those of you who are budget conscious, you may want to consider purchasing a refurb, and both Amazon and a company called Tiger Direct sell refurbed computers that are at a lower cost and will provide you with the service that you may need or the extra computer that your house may have to have in order for everybody to be working. One other item about bandwidth, and this relates specifically to Zoom, which is coming up as well. Our user here will remain anonymous, but he is broadcasting in low bandwidth. I've blocked out the name, and my big red arrows tell me in Zoom that he's broadcasting in a very weak signal. Now, to Zoom's credit, their engineering is really good, and what they have figured out to do is to make sure that the audio streams seamlessly so it sounds good. The picture gets somewhat rasterized, the picture gets smaller, and when the bandwidth recovers, it will get a better visual image. But understand, this is a screenshot from a Zoom presentation, and Zoom will tell you why, in many cases, the conference that you're having isn't going very well. Also, if you are worried about that Verizon bill going up because you're using your cellular data, you can go into your mobile device and you can do your calling over your Wi-Fi network. It becomes basically voice over IP, and it will work with either Verizon or AT&T, and just go into your settings and you can make that change. But understand, as you add more devices onto your network, while you're saving a few dollars on your cellular plan, you may be slowing down the Wi-Fi network that you're working off of. Now, in terms of the customizations that may be worth considering for the machines that you're using, the first thing is I have a plain background on my desktop because I lose icons otherwise. When you've got pictures, you can lose that Word document into the blue of a sky, or you get the picture. Change your background settings. It will help you to work more efficiently. If you have multiple users on a single computer, please be sure that each user has their own account with their own password. If you download Microsoft Power Toys, which is a fabulous tool that is free, it will give you some key command capabilities, and the keyboard has always been faster than the mouse. It will give utilization to that Windows key, the key with the 4 little squares on it. If you press and hold that key, it will show you a numeric corollary to the icons on your taskbar. So, for instance, my Microsoft Outlook is word key number 2, and my Evernote is word key number 3, and so on down the line. It's a great, useful tool. It does have a few other features, but for me, that's been a terrific addition, a real time saver, quite frankly. For those of you who are freaking out over the cosmetics of wires, if you get some Velcro wraps and just sort of tie things down, it gets a little neater and cleaner, and it gets easier to grab the wires that you need. The other item that is very important, antivirus, and I use Bitdefender. It is the red square with the white B that's under my red arrow. It is very important to be able to see your antivirus icon, because if that white B turns red, I've got a problem and I need to address it. So, how do you get your icons to show up on the taskbar? Very simple. The blue arrow is pointing to an upward caret. If you left click on the caret, you will see your other icons. If you click on the icon and drag it down to your toolbar, you will be able to see those icons all the time. I have my USB icon available all the time. I try to have my antivirus. You may have others that are of significance as well. Also, it is very important to understand, it is very important to understand that within the Internet of Things, things are listening to what you are saying. So with that in mind, you may want to consider either pulling the plug or deleting the history at some point in time, particularly if you deal in proprietary and confidential information. So, I have been using this analogy for quite some time. Even the worst driver had to take a road test before they could get a license. Now, that applies to Zoom in the fact that before you could use Zoom, there was no certification to get, or video to watch before download, or read this document and click at the bottom and we'll send you a link. None of that. It was literally grab and go. And you would think that after Cambridge Analytica stole the data of 87 million people on Facebook, we would have proceeded more cautiously when the next big free thing came along. So, a few things to consider. First of all, the bit.ly you're looking at is to a blog post on Zoom that was done back in March that will explain their recommendations for safety and security lockdowns. It's really well done, and it came before that notorious Zoom bombing phrase was invented. Several things to consider doing for yourself. Please don't put your full name into a Zoom event. People can track it. So make your name shorter. If you are going to be concerned about the information on a Zoom event, make it a unique event and not a recurring event, because if you want, once that information is out, and please understand, Zoom is sending a link and the password to get in the door in the same email. That kind of defeats the purpose of two-step authentication, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Also, if you go into zoom.us, username and password to get in, go to settings on the left. It will give you a very large collection of choices, and I recommend turning off annotate and turning off chat if you don't want people to be able to put disparaging comments into a public broadcast. So there are multiple choices of hardware now, and depending upon the work that you do, one may be of greater value than another. Many people know and love Windows. Please be on Windows 10. It is the current operating system. Microsoft is no longer plugging security holes in Windows 7. Macintosh computers, if you've got the pocketbook for it, they make great machines. They come really well loaded and they work really well. Chromebooks, if all of your business is online, Google Chrome works really well. You can do everything from a Chromebook. It's all online, and we'll talk a little more about online storage versus online backup in a little while. And then, of course, there is Ubuntu, or properly pronounced Ubuntu, which is a Linux operating system, a free Linux operating system that will basically give a new lease on life to one of your old computers. It is a free download from Ubuntu. You can burn a CD or burn a DVD or install it onto a thumb drive, and then you can basically give an old computer a lobotomy, turn it into a Ubuntu machine, and for the multitude of Windows-focused viruses and ransomwares, it is impervious because it is a different language. A few other items you might want to consider. I am a huge fan of the $20, I think they're between $10 and $20 Bluetooth keyboards that you can find on Amazon. And right now, I believe you can purchase a Kindle for somewhere between $30 and $50. If you've got kids who need to get into Zoom classes and do homework that is in Google Docs online, this could be a potentially inexpensive solution, because you set them up with a tablet that can run Zoom, they can go to their class. If they have Google Docs, they can open up their Google Doc on the tablet, write whatever they need to. using a keyboard. Nobody knows whether you're at a computer. It's like any other mobile computer device. I am a huge fan of 2-button mouses, whether you're on a Mac or a PC, because the right mouse click will provide a collection of menus that will help you to work efficiently. And as I mentioned on the previous screen, that is the download URL to get a Ubuntu image so that you could create either a DVD or a USB thumb drive to turn an old computer into a Linux device. These days at home, a multifunction printer, it could be really helpful because it will not only do your scanning and your printing, but you can do the occasional fax if you need to as well. Faxzero.com is a website that will allow you to electronically send 2 free faxes per day. And I believe their top end is 4 pages, but that's faxzero.com. USB drives and external drives, important places to back up and store your files so your computer doesn't get full up. And the files, once they are not attached to your network, can remain safe. I am also a huge fan of 2nd and 3rd monitors because they will allow you to work more efficiently. And this is the most tricked out desk that I've seen, and how it stays so neat is just a testament to Belinda Wasser, who, thank you for the use of this image. Those 3 monitors are connected, so she can drag between all of them. They all connect to her one computer. They really help to make you work far more efficiently. Let's go through the software list and understand that asterisks are for free pieces of software. And the first item that I recommend is not free. I have become a very big advocate of Microsoft Office 365 because for $100 a year, they will give you 5 licenses. That's your desktop, your laptop, your child's laptop, your Macintosh, 5 licenses, and 1 terabyte of online storage. And to just give you an idea of how much space is in a terabyte of storage, you can fit 625,000 copies of the Old Testament Bible. Why you would want to, I don't know, but it just gives you an idea of the quantity of space that is afforded in a terabyte. Also, 365 is constantly updating the software and plugging up the holes and improving efficiencies. Also, if you set it up properly, it will auto-save your documents and you can go into older versions. It's really good software, well worth considering the leasing as opposed to the ownership of Microsoft Office 2000. I guess they're up to 2019 or Microsoft Office 2020 now. OpenOffice is a free equivalent to the Microsoft Suite. Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides, free equivalent, also online. If you buy an Apple computer, you get Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. The 2 important things to bear in mind about OpenOffice and Apple's Office Suite are that without doing changes under the hood, if you create a document and you email it without changing it to a .doc or a .xls, the person you send your document to will not be able to open it in Word or Excel. I am also a huge fan of Evernote because I've got it on any device I touch. So I could start a letter on my phone, I get to my laptop, I can work on it a little more. I get downstairs to the desktop machine, open Evernote, the changes are down there, select, copy, paste into an email, and send it out the door. As a free version, Evernote will recycle 60 megabytes a month, which is approximately 37.5 copies of the Old Testament Bible. It's a lot of space for writing. Also, they do have a paid version. I use that because there are several features. As you can see, I do a lot of screenshots. You don't get that in the Evernote free version. You do get that in the Evernote paid version, which I believe is $60 a year. Right now, Adobe Creative Cloud is waiving fees for students so they can basically test drive Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, Lightroom, great software, which right now for students is free. If you're looking at browsers, I've become a very big fan of Brave and it is on both Windows and Macintosh computers. Brave tracks nothing, as opposed to Chrome, which, despite all of their claims that you're turning stuff off, I still believe that Google is tracking what you do. Firefox. I'm a very big fan of Firefox, and in the right column, you can see a number of add-ons that I'm a huge fan of. But Firefox has gotten a little wonky with a number of websites because at the developer end, as there are more browsers, there's more work to optimize them and make them work properly in all of these different pieces of software. So there are places where Firefox may not work so well, features may not work properly, which would require either Chrome, and so far I've found Brave to work really well. And if you must, use Edge. It is the Microsoft product, and there are websites that have been built exclusively for Edge. I am also a big fan of QuickBooks Online, despite their exorbitant price increase. I finish a job, I get in my car, I open my QuickBooks app on my phone, I send a bill. It doesn't get much better than that. Also, the bit.ly just below that is, I believe, a Tech Republic article on some really good apps you might want to consider, and there is my Fax Zero recommendation. In the world of utilities, both Portable Apps and LiberKey are websites that offer free apps that you can download to your machine, and there's an enormous number of them. They have been around many years. They are really well vetted. I use an app called PickPick to do screenshots. It's just terrific. Bullzip is a free app that will put a PDF printer into your Windows computer. So just like you would go file print Hewlett-Packard or file print Brother, you can go file print Bullzip PDF and create a PDF file. It's really good, works really well. Jumbo will track your social media. They claim to store nothing. I saw that recommendation in a New York Times article. They will let you know where stuff is either going on or not going on. They will delete things for you so you don't have to do the housekeeping. As I mentioned earlier, I use Bitdefender as the antivirus in my home. The reason is because a few years ago, during the Consumer Electronics Show, the New York Times gave them 2 positive reviews in 1 week. I read regularly. I'd never seen that before. It was unprecedented. And the wonderful thing about Bitdefender is that most of the work that they're doing in virus protection is from an online server as opposed to the horsepower of your local computer. Now, as far as the Firefox apps and add-ons, DuckDuckGo is a browser that does no tracking as opposed to Google, which you can turn off, and you will see links to other webinars I've done where you can learn the details of that. Colorful apps will change the color of all the tabs. I'm visual, it's easier for me. Fox clocks will give you the time of day globally. Forecast Fox weather globally. I'd mentioned earlier the Evernote Clipper can pull either an entire article or just a web page or just a URL. It's a great add-on that I use very regularly. And FlagFox, which is the reason I like Firefox very much, will give you the country of origin of the computer that you're talking to. In other words, if you have FlagFox, you will see that Facebook is pushing their data from Ireland. So let's start to do some other precautionary things because, as I said, it's very ugly out there. And this was an article that showed up in the New York Post as well as Fox News, and few thoughts on that. First of all, every one of your clients is an A-list client because they pay you. So this A-list notion, I'm not a huge fan of, but it's real short and sweet and gets their message across. You don't want this headline for your business because it is the kind of headline that once it goes out, there is no A-list person that I could think of once they heard this who would want to be doing business with this collection of attorneys. Now, my belief, this is something called spear phishing. These are people who are cutting deals, writing contracts, people get annoyed, people get released from work, people have an axe to grind, and when you get into an environment where somebody knows somebody else's email, it is very easy to fool them. And when we are in this era of enormous distractions, think about it. You're trying to get that email done and somebody's tugging on your shirt sleeve and you're trying to focus here and they're asking for something over there and you lose track and you click. And right now, if you have an issue with an employee, it is very hard when they're working remotely to be sure, as the old saying goes in TV, police movies and shows, have them turn in their gun and their badge. You don't know when people are working remotely what they have already taken or not taken. And to have a quote, and I pulled directly that hackers got into our system while they were focused on the coronavirus. Tell me if you can see any difference between that statement and the notion of texting while driving. Be on your game, folks. It's really ugly out there right now. And another thing, if you get the phone call, and I did about 2 weeks ago, that Eversource was going to shut off my electricity. Well, right now, the law does not allow Eversource, Verizon, AT&T, or your landlord to implement the shutdown or eviction proceedings. That's for now. It will change. But understand that this stuff is coming from all over the place, and the Social Security Service is never, ever going to call you about suspicious activity. The IRS isn't going to call you. Microsoft and Apple aren't going to call you. So, how do we do some safeguards? And before we dive too deeply into that, I want to talk about this app called Alignable, because in the past few weeks, I've gotten a number of these Alignable requests. Alignable is an app that claims to help you build your business. And I looked at it several years ago, and if they are still doing what they were doing, Alignable wants to reach into your address book Take all those names out of your address book and start pushing emails to them. Now, understand that companies like Alignable and Facebook and Cambridge Analytica make money selling data. So I don't see much difference between Alignable pulling your address book and Cambridge Analytica or Facebook pulling your address book. What it will result in is if my name is in your address book, you will be sending me spam, or you will end up sending me a phishing expedition, or bottom line, when something is free, you're the product. So with emails, if it is the lifeblood of your business, be cautious in the emails that you click on. Hover over them to be sure that they are coming from where you think they're coming from. And in many cases, I've been getting inundated with emails right now, and I'm hunkered in a bunker. And every now and then, it's just far more pleasant to pick up a telephone and have a conversation to iron something out than to do this back and forthing with emails. If you're trying to make your inbox lighter, I recommend creating folders, which can be done in Gmail or Outlook. And in Outlook, you can use rules to push things into various folders. In Gmail, rules are called filters. For instance, if I get my weekly grocery store ad, I can create a rule, and a rule is basically an if-then statement. If I get an email from a grocery store, then put it in the advertisement folder. It's really that simple. However, when you start to do that on inbound email, it means that you need to pay attention to that list of folders, because the bold marking is going to show up that something landed in there, and it's just another place you have to look. So, rules and folders to make your inbox a little lighter. I am a fan of unsubscribing from things that I don't need right now or don't care to hear about from my mobile devices, because if there could be a problem, the majority of virus, spam, ransomware is being focused on Windows computers, and the unsubscribing from mobile devices is in my opinion, safer method of unsubscribing. And on the legitimate advertisers, if you scroll to the bottom, you will see an unsubscribe link. BCC's blind carbon copy is just a way of keeping my email out of the whole wide world. In other words, if you've got 8 or 10 people who need to get information, if you BCC, that email address does not get distributed. If you need to let other people know who is on the mailing list, you can put that list in the body of the email, and everybody who needs to get the info will know who's on the list. But if you send emails to 100 people, 100 emails have gone out into the world of spam. If you get links in your email and you hover over the link without clicking, you can see in your bottom left corner in Outlook, and I believe the same holds true in Gmail, where that hot link will take you. And I urge you to read where it's going before you click on it, please. And now there's a new place where there could be a problem. Microsoft is warning people not to open the Excel document that you don't know where it's coming from, because people are embedding macros into the documents that will create a problem. So please proceed cautiously. go a little slower in those emails, because I don't make these numbers up, and I spend a lot of time researching them to explain why it's so important to proceed with caution. So, this first email, Microsoft will always send something with a logo. That's a really bad link to click on. And I know for a fact that FedEx does not need to use dentistelmhurstny.com to send me something about an international priority. It is really important to read your emails, folks. This is my favorite spam item. This is the director of the FBI who has sent to me personally an email to notify me that there is $1.5 million waiting for me if I contact the only Western Union post office in California, and I use a Gmail account to do it. File it in the trash, please. This was another one. Wells Fargo does not use Comcast to send me messages to make up your face in Czechoslovakia. Chase Bank does not use Comcast to send me to chasingdayout.com. Have I mentioned this before? It's really important, folks. And a word on antivirus, because for those of you who are saying, well, I've got antivirus on the machine and everything is going to be fine, and I would suggest to you that it is not going to cover everything. You've got to be cautious in what you click on, and you've got to be cautious in the places that you go to. To the best of my knowledge, Java and JavaScript viruses are, generally speaking, not protected by antivirus. Another piece of software that I'm a huge fan of is this very silly name, SUPERAntiSpyware. They do have a free version for home use. Do not let the garbage accumulate to almost 70,000 instances. Use this regularly. The other day, we had a question about whether to keep your machine on overnight or to shut it off. My suggestion would be that if you are running things like SUPERAntiSpyware or your antivirus overnight, you are not taxing the resources of your computer during the day when you need to use it and you want it to be running as well as it can. So there are two kinds of people in the world, as you see, and I am going to walk you through the 3211 backup, which goes as follows. Put your data in 3 different places, 2 different media, one of them off-site and one of them offline. It works like this. 3 different places. Your computer would be one place. An external drive or a USB drive would be a second place. An off-site place would be a Mozy, Carbonite, or Datto, and I'll give you details shortly. And the offline is Mozy, Carbonite, Datto, or if you use Time Machine or the Microsoft file backup system, unplugging after you run the backup. So, Mozy and Carbonite are paid services online. They take stuff off your computer, and somewhere in their machinery, they are taking versions of the software and apps and files and everything that you've put up in Mozy and Carbonite and putting it on a computer that does not touch the internet. Datto does the same sort of thing, where They put their stuff onto a box in your office, and from the box in your office, they put it online. In the event of a problem, all of these paid services will allow you to reach into their deep backup and retrieve what's done. Here's the important part. Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive in unpaid versions aren't backups for you. They are file access. You can get to your stuff anywhere, but if you get corrupted on one side, stuff on the other side is going to get corrupted as well. Which is why if you're doing a backup, unplug the backup so it is not connected to your network. Passwords, everywhere and everything, particularly with multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, two-step authentication, or the 2SA two-step authentication. I log into my bank on my computer. I put in my username and password. The bank sends a code to my phone, and then I can get through the door on my computer. Yes, it will slow you down. It will keep your finances safe. Blame me for moving slower. In terms of passwords, I'm a huge fan of this LEET language, the transposing of letters and numbers. It's short for ALEET. And as you can see at the bottom in blue, if you combine a person, place, and thing, and you run it through the LEET language, you've got a pretty bulletproof password. Just be sure not to put it there. It's a bad place to leave your passwords, particularly with everybody running around the house. And Sun Tzu was a general 500 years before Christ was born. And while I know he said the part in white, I'm not sure that he said the part in red, but you get the general idea. It's really important, folks. Protect them as best you can. And just a few items on parentals, and then we're very close to the end here. Parenting is not easy right now, but if you use the technology that you have in your home, you can modify behavior and understand that leveraging that password on Wi-Fi may be a useful way of getting some order where there may currently be chaos. Also, consider putting some kind of sign on the door of your office saying, I'm on a meeting and can't be disturbed, or, yeah, you can tug on my shirt sleeve now, it's okay. That's what I get in my email, and that's why I recommend the implementing of parental controls. We have hit the end, folks. So, as I say, be safe. And by the way, while NASA has told that Mars lander to hit itself with a shovel, it's not going to do anything to your mouse, but allow it to break faster. It's just be nice to your hardware. It'll work longer for you. And just a final thought, and then we're on to questions. I had to pick up a prescription at a pharmacy the other day after Connecticut had been opened, and I must have driven past 6 different shopping areas, and the parking lots are still empty. These are personal choices people are making. I saw this article about Magnolia Bakery, and my first reaction was, this is a store that I would walk into. These people are worried about my safety and well-being. Please consider things of this sort for your business as well. What can I answer for you, folks? It is time to stump the professor.
Okay, thanks, Budley. We will use the rest of the time for questions. Just as a reminder, if you'd like to submit a question, you can hover on the bottom of the screen and click on the chat box and submit a question for Bud. And our first question is from Rocky. Actually, there's a couple of questions. The first one is on which version of Bitdefender is best, and maybe I could expand that, and you could maybe talk a little bit how Bitdefender compares to some of the other paid services out there like McAfee.
Okay. Bitdefender has both free and paid versions. The free Bitdefender version is a download, and once you go with any particular version of antivirus, the developer, the software manufacturer, is going to be pushing the updates down to you. Whether you are in a paid version of software or an unpaid version of software, until you get into the banking, healthcare, hospital, government level of software, in my opinion, investing in software as a small business or an individual is about the same as setting money on fire, because they can't keep up with the cooties that are coming at you. You can get a free version and be cautious with what you do, and I think you will be really safe. My brother has been telling my kids for many years, DDAS, which means don't do anything stupid.
A related question, Budley, is coming from Cassandra. Are Bitdefender and SUPERAntiSpyware also recommended for Mac users?
Malwarebytes is available on the Mac, and I am currently using AVG free on my Mac as well. So there is a paid version of Bitdefender for Apple computers. I have not seen SUPERAntiSpyware on the Macintosh side of life.
Okay. Another question here is, and I think you covered some of this when you're talking about backups, but the question from Rocky is iCloud considered a safe backup?
I don't have a great answer for that. The best thing to do would be to actually call Apple and ask them what I refer to as a deep backup is if they are keeping multiple versions. There are plenty of things that can infect your Apple computer, and my recommendation, if you are concerned, is to invest in an external hard drive, plug it in, run Time Machine, whether you're once a week, once a month, once a day, depending upon how much data you're accumulating. When you are done running Time Machine, unplug the external drive, and you have a safe backup.
Okay, that's great. The next one is maybe you just want to give this a couple of sound bites because I don't think we have a presentation coming up on it, but the question is from Bob. Will you be doing any presentations on moving your small business from an office with a server to home with cloud services? And Bob's got 5 employees in the office and may want to close it down and move everyone to home.
Bob, please take an email. The good news is, yes, it can be done in a quote unquote safe fashion. There are services that I would recommend, and they are not services that I provide, but I would be happy to point you to somebody who I think very highly of. Excuse me. Sorry, folks. Just lost my voice. There are services and a person that I can recommend to you.
Okay, that's great. Well, I think we're pretty much at the end here and out of time, so I think we'll end it here. Just want to provide a reminder that the webinar has been recorded and the materials will be available within about 48 hours on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And our next live webinar will be on Tuesday, June 2nd at noon. And again, that topic is what you absolutely positively have to be doing on LinkedIn right now with Mark Halpert presenting. And again, just a reminder, you can see on the screen there, Free individual counseling. If you would like one-on-one, you can click on that link or go to our website. And if you could also please fill out your evaluations when they come after this webinar, we'd really much appreciate it. So thank you all for attending to our live webinar this morning. And in closing, a big thank you to Bud for presenting, and stay well, everyone, and have a great day.